And away we go. It is the Nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com. Brought to you, as always, by our great friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Visit www.galacticfriedchicken.com to download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic. Aaron, Shane wanted me to ask you, did you shake it up?
I did. I don't know. I think it may be time just to move along.
Get some new sauce.
Get some new sauce.
Maybe time
like
to
I said,
get back down to Cincinnati and get a new bottle of sauce.
It doesn't taste bad. It's just the consistency is a little runnier than I want my Galactic sauce.
You like it a little thicker. I get it. It's understandable. All right. Well, make sure you get yourself down to Dayton. Get you some Galactic Fried Chicken. Tell them to pump it up. Get 15% off. And enjoy. It's really good stuff.
Agreed.
The comments and the Twitter replies and everybody that has gone to Galactic speaking about how awesome it is would concur. I think the little baller is the new way to go. Chicken sandwich, fries, PBR.
It's a pretty good deal for what, $11 or something?
It's like $11, yeah. And 15% off if you tell them to pump it up. It's pretty good.
Not bad.
It's pretty good. A couple chicken fingers on Texas toast. The sandwich is like this. Because the chicken fingers are like this, and then you put Texas toast on each side of it.
Well, and if he's putting it on Texas toast, that's the closest thing to Zaxby's you're going to get around these parts.
There's a reason it was voted the number 2 chicken sandwich in Cincinnati.
There you go.
Awesome. Put some Galactic sauce on it. Pickles, if that's your thing. They have great pickles there. I'm not a pickle guy, but the pickle people I know enjoy their pickles immensely. Anyhow, yeah, I'm not a pickle person.
No.
Anyhow, so we've done a lot of football of late. We did almost entirely a football show. The only basketball we talked was
at the
Dave
end.
Admonishing us for not knowing that looked exactly like Garth Brooks.
That wasn't even basketball talk.
No, it wasn't. We didn't talk any basketball on the BCJ pod tonight. So, to in fairness in content, we got to get you your basketball fix, right?
Yes.
We've done point guard.
We have.
In our wide encompassing positional preview or positional breakdown for the offseason. So we've done what? We've done quarterback, running back, and linebacker for football.
Correct.
We've done point guard for basketball.
Yes.
So now it's time to move to the wing. And a lot to talk about here, as this is the position impacted probably the most by the offseason.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about David DeJulius at point guard, or soaking up some minutes there,
right?
Potentially. But the reality is he's going to play probably a majority of his minutes at the 2. That is, unless something crazy happens where it just makes sense to move him to the 1 because you've got too much talent at the 2 and 3, busting at the seams to get on the floor. That's the part of this that's going to be fascinating. Yeah. You know what you're getting at David DeJulius at the 2 after last year, I think. I think that's a fair assessment, right?
I wonder, and this is with the additions, of course, but I wonder if we have only seen what David DeJulius was without somebody as good, if not better than him at scoring at will on the court with him.
That's fair.
Which should be very interesting this season.
You're bringing in a guy like Rob Finney that knows how to play point guard at a high level.
Right.
Might not be the biggest scoring pop option at the position, but that should help everybody else if he's a guy that's more understanding on running the offense, right, getting into the lane, making the right pass, all those things that, really weren't a staple of this team a season ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be interesting to see DeJulius maybe with a guy like Finney at point guard, maybe a Landers Nolly next to him, John Newman maybe taking a step offensively as he gets healthy, because as we know,
he's got some
never
explosion.
really got there. Yeah. And he when he was at his most healthy, he was a guy that was giving you 8, 10, 11 points a game. It was just, as we talked about in those moments when it was happening, that nobody else was doing anything. And instead of being the third guy, he was the first guy in those particular games.
Not his strong suit. Not his strong suit.
We don't know that. Maybe offense might be, being the third or fourth guy might be his strong suit.
I meant being the first guy is
correct. Not his strong suit. 1,000%. We agree there implicitly. So now you add Landers Nolly to John Newman at the 3. And the biggest drop-off last year, I thought, was when either John Newman was out of the game or we had feared that he had destroyed his knee and was done for the season. And then he was back like 36 hours later playing again.
Was Newman kind of the Brian Cook of this team?
Kind of, yeah. Like, he kept taking blows and he just kept popping back up the next day on the court.
Not afraid to put his body out there 1,000% and take whatever came with that. And we thought he was going to be done several times throughout the season. And here he comes back next game. Like,
here's where I think that can be a big benefit. You need a guy like John Newman, right?
He's a glue guy.
You absolutely have to have a guy like John Newman on your roster if you're going to win. But needing him for 35 minutes, which they absolutely did last year when he was like healthy, is not the right spot for how he plays. You want him at 23 to 25 minutes potentially.
Well, especially when you're putting your body out the way that
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, right. Like you gotta cut down. He needs 8 to 10 minutes less a game than what we saw from him last year.
But when he wasn't on the court, to your earlier point, you saw that defensive drop off. You saw that even the offensive drop off. And maybe that's just the way that the offense ran through him, as opposed to, maybe not through him is the right word, but I mean, just the way that the offense ran when he was on the floor,
right,
as opposed to when he was off the floor. It wasn't just on one side of the court that there was a drop off.
And then you potentially now have Landers Nolly,
right,
who can fill all of those other minutes and maybe is the starter. I don't know, like, what way West goes with that. But either one, you now feel completely comfortable as I've felt in a long time with Cincinnati at the 3 position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And even behind the 2 of them.
Well, let's Daniel Skillings is going to be the interesting one, because long-term, the reality is he's probably a 2 guard. Is he going to be ready for that as a freshman? Because naturally, like, day one, he's probably more of a 3. Guarding 2s, and especially like teams that have smaller 2s or whatever, is a significant challenge for a freshman. What is he going to be able to handle as a freshman? Because if he's able to handle 15 to 20 minutes a game at the 2, this team becomes fascinating. Because now you've got Fennessy, Mike Adams-Woods, DeJulius operating at the 1, and DeJulius at the 2, and then Skillings at the 2. Now you've got Nolly and Newman at the 3, and you don't need a whole lot more from point guard and wing. Now that, what is Jared Hensley? What is Josh Reed? Is there an opportunity for Jeremiah Davenport at the 3? I don't think so. I just think you get better positional
minutes
versatility
from him
at the 4 than you do at the 3. You're not trying to cover his ass as much at the 3. Although defensively at the 4, we saw a Fabian White, the Jackson kid. There were a couple guys in the league that gave him a lot of trouble at the 4.
Because he's not built to bang around with bigger bodies at the 4. He's just simply not built that way. But those
Hensley
same guys
is.
Well, but those same guys who Davenport can't bang around with at the 4 also can't guard him when he's out on the arc.
Right. So that part is going to be very interesting in terms of I think Skillings impacts a lot more of this than people realize.
He's the wild card.
He's absolutely the wild card. Because if you can get Dave at 20 minutes at the 2 and maybe 7 or 8 minutes at point guard, and then get those other 15 minutes, 17 minutes at the 2 that would pop up in that scenario, and you get a Dan Skillings that can give you some scoring pop, some offensive rebounding, some length, that length that we've talked about that they missed on the perimeter. Now you've got exceptional length at the 2 and the 3 and the 4. Like, Dan just adds such an unknown to this mix. And I think he's undervalued on the ratings, the rankings. I think he's a top 50 or 60 kid. He won a state championship. He was the best player on a state championship team in a state that takes basketball pretty seriously.
But he's still learning basketball.
Yes. So that's the question.
Right.
How ready is he to just step in and be kind of that, like, not that dude, but like a dude, or more than just a guy that we got to get him, we got to get him some minutes here and there.
I am probably looking forward to hearing about him during summer workouts more than anybody on this roster.
Yeah. You're probably not alone there.
I'm so excited about Landers Nolly, don't get me wrong. And obviously he's got to finish some things before he gets here for workouts and what have you. But that all said, I'm still way more excited to see what reports come out about Daniel Skillings, simply because of all of the question marks, that the ceiling is so high, potentially.
Where does he fit in year 1?
Mm-hmm.
Does he have a Jaron Cumberland year 1? If he has a Jaron Cumberland year 1,
watch out.
Right? Like, does he have a Keith Williams year 1, where Keith kind of struggled in that? Remember, Trevor Moore was ahead of Keith Williams in year 1. It's because Trevor was better at defense and
at practice. He was better at practice.
No, I mean, there were actually things in, like, Keith just struggled that first year, and then that summer it was pretty clear things changed.
Yeah,
but there was a reason that first year that it was like it was. So where does Skillings fit in that part? That's going to be the story of the summer, kind of, I think, for this team. Obviously, when Nolly gets here, and what does his Zec pay look like, and the fantasy stuff, what you're going to get from him, in terms of defense and effort and leadership and all of that. But Skillings, I think, makes this team different. Gives this team the thing that we've talked about, that I'm done with having just a bunch of 6'2.5" dudes playing, splitting the 1-2 and some minutes at the 3. Like, John Newman is 6'5". He's got good length. He's a good athlete.
It's like 6'8" with the hair.
But he was the only one really that fit that mold last year on this team.
Sure.
And I'm ready to see more of it.
Well, I mean, even if you got something out of somebody at the 3 that you didn't have that type of a drop off, how different is this team during those breaks?
The stretches in February when they were just buckling.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. The wing is it's the most fascinating spot. I mean, when we get to the 4 and the 5, we know a lot about that, I think. Like in terms of where things are at, you know?
I think there's maybe one or two.
There's questions,
Sure.
but we know more about that than we do how exactly, like, this team is going to be as good as what happens on the wing takes them, right? If Dave can play 28 minutes and get you 14, 15 points, and Landers Nolly can play 30 minutes and get you 15, 16 points, and then you've got guys sprinkled around them.
I think it's going to be very interesting.
Newman gets you 7 or 8, and Skillings gets you 7 or 8. Like, all of a sudden,
well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Landers Nolly brings to the table, only in the fact that at Memphis there were so many mouths to feed, and here I don't think it's going to be quite the same.
He's going to be at worst 1B behind DeJulius.
At worst,
probably 1A.
I think the vast majority of us would be surprised if he wasn't.
Right, but until he gets here and we get a feel. But this is also a kid that was first team all freshman ACC and first team all American Athletic Conference his second year, his first year at Memphis.
Yep.
He's got a chance to be really good. I just don't want to get too into the overhyping. Right.
Try not to get too excited about both him and Skillings. It's not easy.
Right. But I like that as opposed to
what do we have? What are we going to do? Right.
Those conversations aren't nearly as fun. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up. Great night of content. Get your football fix over on the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, and we get you some great basketball stuff here on the Nightcap. Thanks, as always, to Galactic Fried Chicken. He's Aaron Smith. I'm Chad Brendel. See you tomorrow night. Right here.